Billionaire was taking his fiancée home. Until he saw his ex crossing the street with twins. Adrian Cole adjusted his platinum Rolex the way people adjusted a tie, without thinking. It was muscle memory now. A habit built from boardrooms, contract signings, investor meetings, and countless photos where he had learned how to look calm even when he was calculating 10 moves ahead. The midnight black Aston Martin purred under him like it knew it belonged to a man who didn't lose. Downtown Seattle was bathed in late afternoon gold. Glass towers reflected the sun like mirrors. People flooded the sidewalks with that end-of-week energy, tired, relieved, eager to go home. Beside Adrian sat Cassandra Wells. 28. Blonde. Gorgeous in a way that looked effortless but wasn't. Her hair fell in styled waves, her nails were perfect, her sunglasses were designer, and her perfume smelled expensive without being loud. She turned slightly in her seat and checked her reflection in the visor mirror. "The restaurant has a 2-month waiting list," she said, almost laughing. "I still can't believe you got us a table tonight." Adrian smiled, eyes on the road. "At this point, I could get a table in a place that's not even open yet." Cassandra's laugh was light and bright, the kind of sound that didn't carry weight. "Perks of being you," she teased. Adrian didn't deny it. At 40, money wasn't a goal anymore. It was a tool. A language. A shield. A way to control outcomes. And lately, control had become his favorite kind of comfort. Cassandra reached over and slid her hand across his. "I like you like this," she said softly. Relaxed. Relaxed. Adrian had spent most of his adult life being described in the opposite way. Intense. Driven. Focused. Unavailable. His last relationship, his real relationship, had ended because of those exact words. And he had accepted them like facts, like numbers in a report. Not as criticism. Not as failure. Just as truth. He'd built a life where no one could demand more from him than he wanted to give. And Cassandra fit perfectly into that new life. Beautiful company. No pressure. No expectations. No complicated conversations about kids. Family holidays. Weekend plans that stretched into next year. Domestic routines. Emotional needs. Just, calm. Simple. He thought that was what he wanted. The traffic light ahead turned red. Adrian stopped smoothly. His phone buzzed with notifications, work, meetings, numbers, a message from David Chen about an investor call. He ignored it. Friday evenings were sacred now. Cassandra leaned her elbow on the door and watched people crossing the street. "You know," she said, "my friends are jealous of me." Adrian glanced at her. "Because I'm charming?" She smirked. "Because you don't cling." He almost laughed. "I'm serious," she continued. "Most men start making plans for next year by month 3. They start talking about moving in, meeting parents, trips, some vision of the future. You don't." Adrian's grip tightened slightly on the steering wheel, but his face stayed calm. "That's not your thing?" Cassandra asked. "I like living in the moment," Adrian replied. He meant it. Sort of. He liked living in the moment because it kept everything safe. It kept him from the kind of future that once made him feel trapped. A child crying at night. A partner staring at him with disappointment. A home that required him to show up emotionally, consistently, every day. He had told himself he wasn't built for that. And maybe, he'd been right. The crosswalk filled with pedestrians. Office workers with backpacks. Couples holding hands. Teenagers laughing. An older man walking a small dog. And then, Adrian's breath caught. A woman stepped into the crosswalk with careful steps, moving as if her arms carried something fragile. Because they did. 2 tiny bundles. Two babies. Wrapped in soft blankets, one blue, one pink. The woman's auburn hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail. No designer sunglasses. No styled waves. No luxury. Just practicality. Motherhood. Adrian knew her profile instantly. Even from that distance. Even from one glance. Because it wasn't just her face he recognized. It was the way she held her shoulders. The way she walked like she was protecting the world inside her arms. The way she tilted her head down slightly, focused only on what mattered. Lena Hart. His ex-fiancée. The woman he had left exactly 1 year and 1 month ago. His chest tightened like a door slammed shut inside him. Lena paused in the middle of the crosswalk. One baby fussed. She shifted them both to one arm, like she'd done it 1,000 times, and gently stroked the crying infant's cheek with her free hand. Her lips moved. She was humming. Maybe singing. The baby quieted almost immediately. Adrian couldn't move. He couldn't blink. He couldn't breathe. Then she continued across the street and disappeared into the crowd. The light turned green. Cars behind him waited. Cassandra touched his hand. Adrian, she said carefully. The light. He blinked hard, like waking up from a dream. And drove forward. But the image stayed burned into his mind. Two babies. Twins. Around 4 months old. And suddenly, the timing of everything he thought was settled, didn't feel settled anymore. Cassandra studied his face. You look like you've seen a ghost. Adrian forced a small smile. Just thinking about work, he lied. But he wasn't thinking about work. He was thinking about the last conversation he had ever had with Lena. The one that ended everything. Lena had sat on the edge of his couch that night, curled slightly inward like she didn't want to take up space. Adrian remembered the wine glasses on the table. The city lights behind the penthouse windows. The quiet. It wasn't a screaming breakup. There were no accusations. No betrayal. That's what made it so clean. And so haunting. Lena had said, I want a family someday. Adrian had responded without hesitation. I don't. It had been honest. Brutal honesty. The kind he prided himself on. Lena didn't cry. She just stared at her hands for a long time, then looked up and asked, So, never? Adrian shook his head. Not with me. He remembered the way her face changed. Not dramatic. Not angry. Just, something inside her closing. She nodded once. Okay. And that was it. The next morning, she packed her things. She left a note that said, I love you. But love isn't enough if we want different lives. And she was gone. Adrian had told himself that was maturity. Two adults recognizing incompatibility. A respectful ending. He had told himself he did her a favor. He had told himself she would find someone who wanted the same things. He had told himself he would feel relief. And he did. For a while. But now. Now he had seen her crossing a street with twins. And he couldn't stop his mind from doing math. He couldn't stop his chest from tightening with something that felt like fear. Because if those twins were 4 months old, then Lena would have been pregnant around the time she left. And she never told him. His mouth went dry. Cassandra's voice pulled him back again. Are you sure you're okay? She asked, a little softer now. Adrian nodded too quickly. I'm fine. But he wasn't. Not even close. Dinner was expensive. Quiet. Candlelit. The kind of place where the menus didn't have prices because the kind of people who ate there didn't need to see them. Cassandra talked about her next gallery show. Her photography. A project she was doing on modern loneliness. Adrian nodded in the right places. Smiled at the right moments. But his brain was stuck on one loop: twins. At some point, Cassandra set her fork down. "You're not here," she said. Adrian blinked. "I'm sorry. This isn't business," she said. "I can tell. Your business face is stressed. This is different." Adrian hesitated, then decided the truth was safer than silence. "I saw someone today," he admitted. Cassandra's eyes narrowed slightly. "Someone you know?" "My ex." "The ex," Cassandra repeated. She didn't sound jealous. "Just curious." Adrian nodded. Cassandra waited. "She had babies," he said quietly. Cassandra's expression shifted, subtle but real. "Babies," she echoed. "And that shook you?" Adrian swallowed. "She wasn't pregnant when we broke up." Cassandra held his gaze like she was taking a photograph in her mind. "Are you sure?" she asked. Adrian didn't answer. Because he suddenly wasn't sure of anything. Lena didn't answer right away. She walked Oliver back and forth slowly, her movements careful, practiced. Emma stirred in Adrienne's arms, her tiny fingers curling into the fabric of his shirt as if anchoring herself there. That small gesture did something to him. Something permanent. "Adrian," Lena said finally, her voice quiet but steady, "I need you to understand something before we go any further." "I'm listening." "I don't want to go back to who we were." The words landed gently, but firmly. Adrian nodded. "Neither do I. That relationship was built around your world," she continued. "Your schedule. Your priorities. Your freedom. I bent myself to fit into it because I loved you. But motherhood changed me. I can't shrink anymore. Not for you. Not for anyone." Adrian swallowed. This wasn't rejection. It was something harder: terms. "I don't want you to rescue us," Lena said. "I don't want to be taken care of. I want a partner who shows up, even when it's uncomfortable. Especially then." Adrian looked down at Emma. She was awake now, studying his face again with that unnerving seriousness. "I don't want to rescue you," he said quietly. "I want to stand beside you." Lena studied him, searching for cracks, for uncertainty, for the man she had loved and lost, the one who ran from responsibility disguised as honesty. "Words are easy," she said. "I know. So what are you actually offering?" Adrian took a breath. "Time. Presence. Consistency. I'm not asking you to move in tomorrow. I'm asking to earn my place. Slowly. On your terms." The babies chose that moment to cry, both of them, overlapping, urgent. Lena sighed. "Dinner time. I'll help." She hesitated, then nodded. That night, Adrian fed Emma while Lena handled Oliver. It wasn't graceful. He spilled formula. Emma kicked her feet impatiently. He apologized to a 4-month-old like she could understand. Lena watched quietly from across the room. "You talk to her," she noticed. "She listens," he replied. Emma responded with a gurgle that sounded suspiciously like approval. For the first time, Lena smiled without guarding it. Over the next weeks, a rhythm formed. Adrian adjusted his schedule without announcing it, without seeking credit. He stopped staying late at the office. He declined weekend trips. He learned how to fold baby clothes the way Lena liked them. He memorized Emma's cries and Oliver's moods. He showed up. Not perfectly. But consistently. And consistency, Lena discovered, was harder to fake than charm. 3 months later, the babies were sitting up. Oliver laughed loudly, full-bodied and unrestrained. Emma watched everything before reacting, her smiles deliberate and earned. Adrian was there for the first laugh. The first roll. The first time Oliver reached for him instead of Lena. Lena noticed. So did Adrian. He didn't comment on it. He just stayed. One evening, after the babies were asleep, Lena poured 2 cups of tea and handed one to Adrian. "Do you ever regret it?" she asked quietly. "Regret what?" "Choosing this." Adrian thought for a moment. "I regret how long it took me to understand what mattered." She nodded. "Me too. In different ways." They sat in silence, the kind that no longer felt tense. The move happened gradually. Not because Adrian pushed. Because Lena allowed it. First, spare clothes at his place. Then a toothbrush. Then weekends. Then one night, Lena stayed longer than planned. And then longer still. Eventually, the baby's toys began appearing in every room of the house Adrian had bought, not as an investment, but as a home. A year later, Adrian stood in the backyard holding Oliver on his shoulders while Emma clutched Lena's hand, determined not to miss anything. "You look different," Lena said softly. Adrian smiled. "So do you." They had both changed. Not into who they used to be. But into people who chose each other again, without illusion, without fear, without running. And sometimes, late at night, when the house was quiet and the children were asleep, Adrian would think about that moment at the crosswalk. The moment everything cracked open. And he knew, with absolute certainty, walking away had made him successful. But staying had made him whole.